Welcome back again to the Ivory Tower Collections, and yes, we have bad audio and bad camera work today. I am using my cell phone to take this because I don't have my real cool camera at the ready. So I'm working on a 5200 here that basically I was tasked with doing the power conversion on, which is already completed, and doing other diagnostic work. I noticed that there was a problem. Specifically, what happened is when I was running the diagnostics and using my loopback tester board, I was getting failure error codes related to port 2. So to better isolate exactly what might be wrong with port 2, I loaded up a different controller test that lets me see each controller functionality individually to check it out. So right now I have a controller plugged into port 1, and you'll see that it's my test controller here. And here we are looking at a 5200 controller screen, and you'll see that it seems to be working just fine on port 1. There's start, pause, reset, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, asterisk, 0, and hash or pound. Working great. So now let's switch over to port 2, which again, according to the diagnostics test on the loopback, or the diagnostic test using the loopback, this port has some problems. Here we have the controller now plugged into port 2. Let's take another look. Seems to be working fine. Fire buttons are good. Start, pause, reset, no problem there. 1, 2, no button 3, 4, 5, no button 6, 7, 8, no button 9, asterisk, 0, and hash or pound. So basically the whole right side of the keypad from 3, 6, 9, and pound are not registering off of this controller. I did check the other two ports, ports 3 and 4, and they're working great. No problems there. So all of the issues are strictly related to port 2. So let's fix this. Okay, now we're going to start by looking at the troubleshooting flowchart. So let me try to get my camera to focus in a little bit. So I've already jumped down to the keyboard troubleshooting section, and the first thing it says is the failure on port 1? Well, no, it's not on port 1. The next thing says manually select the Pokey adjustment test screen. So I will need to get to that now. All right, we're going to power it back on. We're going to go back to diagnostics, and we're going to go to the diagnostics 1.1. I use the 1.1 for 4-port consoles and the version 2 tests for the 2-port units. And we want Pokey adjust, which is option 5. And here we are. We are looking at the Pokey adjustment screen. And okay, so I'm going to go ahead and disconnect the controller port for now because we are on the correct test that the troubleshooting guide is asking us to do. It says manually select Pokey adjustment test. Now, first thing it says is, are there 5-volt peak-to-peak square waves on pin 6 of U9 through U12? Now, U9 through U12 is actually the 4052 MUX controllers along the front edge of the 5200 boards. And these do fail quite often. Now, unfortunately, this is a slightly newer made 4-port unit, so it does not have these MUX chips in sockets, which is kind of disappointing because if they were, it would be easy enough to just try swapping these in and out amongst themselves to see if I can get the problem to follow or stay and have a better idea as to where the issue is. But I don't, so let's go with the troubleshooting and let's do what it says to do. So when it says 5 volts peak to peak to check pins on these chips, what is it telling me? It means I get to use my lovely B&K Precision 1474 oscilloscope. Okay, so just so we can see what adjustments I have, I'm actually using my channel B on this scope, and that's really because where the scope sits in relation to my workbench, I have more room when I use the second channel. So that's the only reason for using channel B. I have channel B selected for checking DC, and I currently have my volts per division set at 1 volt per division. So what that means is that each one of these squares going up vertically equals 1 volt. And then I have the timing currently set to, it looks like 0.2 microseconds. is where I currently have my sweep time. But I may have to adjust this in order to see what I need to see. So yeah, let's go ahead and that's my oscilloscope set where I need to. Let's go ahead and check out these pin readings. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to check pin 6 off of chip number U9, which is the first 4052 MUX controller chip right here. And it says to check pin 6, so again we're going to count over from here. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so go ahead and get the probe attached. And what does the oscilloscope show? Well, it doesn't show a whole lot of anything, right? Just kind of looks like something's pulsing there. Well, that's because I have to adjust my time sweep. So let me go ahead and adjust this. And I've now adjusted it to 10 microseconds. And there we go. I apologize for the flickering. The scope is flickering on my side as well. As you can see that I'm now registering basically 1, 2, 3, 4. There are basically 5 squares vertically that are being occupied on that square wave. And that's exactly what I would expect. We were supposed to get roughly 5 volts peak-to-peak square waves. So I do have that on U9. Let's go ahead and take a look at the next one, which is going to be U10. So same, or I'm sorry, U11. So here we are. We're attached to pin 6. And again, it looks like I have 5 volt peak-to-peak square waves. Now I want to check U12. So there I am on pin 6 on U12, and we do appear to have 5 volts peak-to-peak, again, on square waves. And then we have U10 over here, so let me get my probe on pin 6 of U10. And again, we appear to have a 5 volt peak-to-peak square wave. Let's go back to the troubleshoot sheet here. And what's the next thing? It says, okay, so are there 5 volts peak-to-peak on pin 6 of U9 through U12? Yes. Cool. Is there also 5 volts peak-to-peak square waves on pins 9 and 10 of U9 and U12? So, same thing as before. I've already got the probe connected up here. By the way, the ground is just connected off of one of these caps off the controller ports. It's attached to the main ground line here. And I put it in a location where I could reach all the chips easily, so that makes that nice. Okay, so pin 9 and pin 10. So pin 9 is right here. And again, it says we're looking for 5 volts peak-to-peak square wave. So we definitely have a 5 volt reading. Is it a square wave? Well, I don't know. I'm probably going to have to adjust the timing. There we go. Now I'm back to 0.2 microseconds. And we clearly have 5 volt peak-to-peak square waves. Cool. Let's see if pin 10 gives me the same results. Again, this is off of the same chip, U9. Yep. Still got square waves on pins 9 and 10. And we have to do that for all of them. Now, I will tell you that the square waves are going to be slightly different on each of these. Like, look at this one. Here's my square wave. That's just one single square wave. It looks like the cycle's actually 0.2 microseconds. And this is off of U11. But, again, 5 volts, definitely a square wave. Let's check pin 10. Yep, 5 volts peak-to-peak square waves. Let's check U12. Okay. Same thing. We've definitely got a 5 volt peak-to-peak square wave there. Check pin 10. Directly next to it. Okay. And again, 5 volt peak-to-peak square waves. All right, that leaves us with U10, the very last chip to check in this batch. So we're checking pin 9 first. Again, those are 5 volt peak-to-peak square waves. And let's check pin 10 directly next to it, right there. And again, 5 volt peak-to-peak square waves. What's next? Okay, so we definitely have our 5 volts peak-to-peak on 9 and 10 of chips U9 through U12. So that's a yes. So now it's asking, which port failed? Well, it's port 2. This one right here. So now it's telling me to go to page 4-23 of the manual. So let's do that. And here we are. There's not a whole lot to this. What does it say first? Swap out U9 and U12. Yeah. So I did all of that testing just for it to finally tell me to swap out U9 and U12. So what I'm going to do is I've got a 4052 right here in my hand. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to power off the console, and I'm just going to piggyback this 4052 on top of U9. So I now have my a replacement 4052 on top of U9. Now the reason for this, now this can alter the readings of course because you got two chips in place here, but it'll be curious to see if this is enough to be able to see what happens with port 2. Okay, I've got my controller plugged back into port 1. I've got a replacement 4052 piggybacked on top of U9 to test if I need to replace it or not. Powering on the console. Here we are. Let's go straight to the controller test. Okay, controller port 1 still seems to function normally. Fire button's working good. Start, pause, reset. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I apologize, I'm using one hand on this. 7, 8, 9. Asterisk, 0, and hash. So that's working. So let's switch over to port 2. Okay. Port 2 is now plugged in. And we are getting cardinal direction readings, right? Fire button's working. Start, pause, reset. 1, 2, 3. Look at that. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Asterisk, 0, hash. So port 2 is now fully functional again. Now just to make sure this isn't going to be some fluke thing, let's check the other ports, right? Should always check and make sure. Now just because 3 and 4 tested for me earlier, again I didn't do that on camera, but you have to trust me, they were working. So now we're plugged into port 3. Fire buttons are working. Start, pause, reset seems to be working. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Asterisk, 0, hash. We're still looking pretty good. All right, let's pop on over to port 4. There we are, port 4. Cardinal directions are good. Got fire buttons, start, pause, reset working. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Asterisk, 0, and hash. So it would appear all 4 controller ports now operate and function as we would expect with that chip in place. But let's do one more final test. And that will be to plug my controller test port loopback board into the 5200 during that portion of the test to see if it now passes with U9 running a piggybacked replacement. Let's check it out. Okay, so now we're going to go into the diagnostic 1.1. And we're going to specifically choose option 4, which is the port test. Now when I do this, it's going to come up and say insert the loop back board. So what I need to do is I need to disconnect controller port 1. Need to get my loop back tester board. Now this is going to be tricky. I'm going to put the phone down for a second. Okay, loop back board's inserted. Now we wait, and what will happen is for a few seconds the console will sit here. Eventually it will recognize the loop back board is installed and it starts to go through the testing. And that's it. No error codes. Everything passed. So it would appear that U9 is the issue, and I will get that replaced out. But I'm sure you're curious. How did I even know to check all this in the first place, right? I told you earlier that I had gotten error codes when I tested this, right? So let me reset everything. I'm going to remove that replacement 4052 off of U9, and let me show you what happens on the testing. Okay, I've got that chip removed off the U9, so we are back to stock condition as the console was. I've got my standard controller port into port 1. I've already loaded up the diagnostic test, and it's already ready to execute the port test. So let me go ahead and hit start. It's asking for that loopback board. So let's go ahead and disconnect port 1, or my controller off of port 1. I'm going to have to set the camera down while I plug in my controller port board. Okay. Loopback board is in place. Now let's wait for the test to execute and see what happens. See? And this time it's giving me an error condition, 0901. Okay, so I'm now in the part of the diagnostics or service manual, service guide, that talks about the actual failure codes and what they mean. And again, we have a 09 error code. The 09 simply indicates port 2 data keyboard error, which we already knew. So yeah, that was essentially how I knew where I needed to start checking to find out what was going on. But I'm going to go ahead and replace U9. Go ahead and replace this guy out for now, get a socket on it, and replace it with a new 4052, and run the test again and see how we're looking. I now have U9 replaced out and installed on a socket. Got my controller port plugged in here, standard controller. Let's go ahead and power on the 5200. And let's go again to the diagnostics. Go to the port test. It's asking for the loopback board, so let's go ahead and unplug our controller. And I will get this loopback board plugged in. Loopback board's plugged in. Waiting on the test. Good to go. No errors. Now let's fire up the controller test and see how that looks. Okay, controller port 1 still seems to be working okay. Fire buttons are registering, no problems there. Start, pause, reset. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, asterisk, 0, and hash. Okay, let's plug it into port 2. There we go. And port 2 is controlling properly. Bottom fire, top fire looks good. Start, pause, reset. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, asterisk, 0, and hash. So, another 5200 brought fully back to life. Again, this was a minor issue, and most people might, or if you were just a casual gamer, you might not even notice there was a problem, because again, the issue was only related to port 2. And if I had just been playing a normal game using just one player, I might not even have noticed. And in fact, I'm not even sure how many two-player games would require use of the keypad for the second player anyway. In most cases, in a two-player game, the difficulty of the actual game between the two players is set by the settings off of whoever's got controller 1 plugged in anyway, and that one was already working. So this wasn't really like a critical error or an issue to really speak of, but just thought it would be interesting and make for another good 5200 troubleshooting video. So again, to rehash and summarize, the problem was on controller port 2, the entire right side keypad section was not working at all. And the ultimate fix was to replace the 4052 MUX controller chip right here located in U9. So thanks again for hanging out with me, and I'll catch you guys another time.